Jenny. I'm going to share a card with you that I made just for me. Well, to give to someone, but just for me to give to someone, using this adorable stamp set that I had to get my hot little hands on from Avery Elle. It's called Somebody Loves You, and it's just a little small set, and I got the coordinating dies too. So I am going to use a combination of watercolor paper and some Bristol smooth paper, and I think some Nina 110-pound paper to Copic color on. First, this is some watercolor paper, and it's actually it's a cold press paper, and it is from Blick Art Supply Store, and it's their brand. It comes in like a 9x12 glued, sort of sealed around all sides pad. And it's actually a pretty decent watercolor paper. Maybe not for a big area, but for small images like this, it worked out great. So I stamped that twice just in case I needed it more than once. And now I'm going to stamp the bunny and the little hearts that are part of the set. I'm stamping those onto the Nina Classic Crust paper, and I'm going to use the same ink that I used for the watercolor paper, which is the Gina K Amalgam black ink, and it's great to be able to use the same one for all of these things, whether it's Copic or watercolor or whatever. So I stamped that, and then I'm going to stamp it again, even though I don't color but one of the bunnies, just because I've learned my lesson, and I tried to stamp everything out at least once, just in case, which 9 times out of 10 I actually do end up having to use it. So all right, once I get the bunnies set out, I am going to go ahead and take my Gansai Tambi watercolors, and I'm going to color in the balloons. So I'm using my little Nuvo brushes. I believe it's a small brush. It may be a 6. And I'm going to wet the area first, and then I'm going to go in with my paint. And you can see that's my favorite color because it's almost gone. It's sort of the tealy turquoise blue. And I just keep adding water to the wet area until I kind of try to create a highlight, you know, in the balloon without adding too much. I didn't want to go overboard, so I just have to get it to that one point where you can kind of stop and let it sit. And it dries back a decent bit, but not too bad. And I love these watercolors when I'm doing something vibrant because they do have a great vibrant color. All right, I'm going to paint the other one too in the combination of that same teal green color and the sort of sky blue periwinkle color that is next to it. And I think I used the teal color one, but I did like the way this one came out with just a little mix of those two colors. I could be lying. It could be the green. But I don't think it is. Anyway, I wanted to make this card really subtle and simple and just have the bunny and this, you know, bright balloon and have a little bit of distress ink in the background. And that was it. I mean, I didn't want to overcomplicate it with too many embellishments or anything like that. And that's really hard for me to do. So anyway, I'm going to finish painting those up and let that dry completely. And meanwhile, I'm going to grab my Copic markers and start to color the rabbit. I thought about watercoloring the bunny, but I thought that I would have more control with the Copics, and yeah, so okay, I think I'm done messing around with that. Nope, not quite. I'm still gonna mess around with it. All right. The problem is that you can overwork it and then you'll lose the highlight, and then you just end up pushing all the water to the side. So I'm trying to not do that. But I think I do end up using that teal one because I think it looks better there. Okay, now I'm going to color the bunnies, and those are the colors I use on the left, a W1, W5, and W7. And I don't even think I used the W7 unless it was very, very little bit. I actually went to go buy, I think, the W3 or maybe the 6, and I accidentally bought a W1 instead. So now I have two W1s, which is fine because I really like that color. But anyway, I started with the lightest part and then went to the darker part, and now I'm just going to color it in. And I leave that pretty much the way it is. I didn't want to get it too dark, and in fact, it's almost darker than I wanted it to. I kind of wanted it to be really, really pale. So I'm going to pretty much leave him that way, and then I'm going to go in and color his little tail and his ears with pink. And it's 2 colors of pink. And I don't think I put the lids on there. I think it's RV52 and RV, I don't know which color the other one is. I'll have them listed in the description below. And I color the same, use the same ones for the hearts there. And I only end up using 3 of the hearts, but I did go back and use the light pink on his cheeks and gave him a little bit of blush after the fact. It's not shown in the video. And that was pretty much it. So now I'm going to take, and I'm going to use the Distress inks and not the Distress oxides because I wanted it to be really, really, really pale. So I take, I'm using squeezed lemonade and spun sugar in the Distress inks. And I have those in the minis. So I've got my, and I think I just used the same brush. No, I'm pretty sure I used different brushes. And I've got my life-changing brushes, and I'm going to just barely touch the background with the yellow kind of at the top and the pink down towards the bottom, and just kind of do an oval coloring just kind of in the center just to give it a little bit of a background. And I wanted it to be super, super pale and very, very, very feminine and very light and very, which is a great way to do it, is to use the, and maybe I think my spun sugar might be drying up a bit, but the oxides would have gotten, too dark on me, so I'm glad I used the regular ink. Okay, so that's the way the background came out, and there's the balloon all dried, and I went ahead and die cut the images out using the coordinating dies off screen. And now I'm going to try to figure out which piece of paper I'm going to use to layer. I grabbed this piece of paper. It's the pearlescent cardstock from Tonic, from Craft Perfect, which does the paper for Tonic, and it is in the color Barely Blush, and it is gorgeous. It's just a teeny bit off of like an ivory color, and it was perfect for this card. So I'm going to stamp the little sentiment that comes with it that says "Somebody loves you," and I'm going to do it inside the balloon. I think that's kind of the way they intended it to be, but I liked it anyway like that because I didn't want to have anything else on the card. I didn't want to have a little sentiment strip or anything else taking away from it. So what I actually do is try to figure out how I'm going to tilt the angle I'm going to tilt the balloon at, and then I'm going to put this sentiment straight so you can kind of read it straight, and then the balloon will be at an angle. So I just used my powder tool to get rid of any static, and now I'm going to stamp it with the Gina K ink again in black, and then I'm going to use a clear embossing powder just to give it a little bit of shine, but I wanted to use the same blacks everywhere. And the amalgam ink stays wet long enough for you to do that. It doesn't take too long to dry, but it did stay wet long enough for me to add. And I believe this is a Hero Arts Fine Detail Clear. And then once I get that covered, I'm going to heat up the powder until it gets nice and shiny, and it just gives it a little bit of texture and makes it pop a little bit more which is going to be good because I'm going to end up covering up the balloon with some clear crystal drop glaze. Okay, I've got my my card base here. I'm just going to score it so it is a top folding A2 size card. And then I'm going to start to put it all together. I've got my card, the layered base piece that I've got, that barely blush piece, and then the piece of Bristol that I used to ink blend on top of there. So I'm going to go ahead and use my tape runner to adhere the pearlescent card piece to the card base. And then I wanted to have a little bit of dimension, but I didn't want to use it with the images that I colored. So I'm going to use it on the back of the ink blended piece. I'm just going to use a piece of fun foam behind it to just give it a little bit of something. And that's the piece of foam there. I've glued it to, or I'm going to glue it to the back of the Bristol using some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, which works great. And then once I get that set, I'm going to do the same thing and glue it, both of those pieces, onto the card base. I am almost out of Deluxe adhesive, which shows you how much I like it because it's a pretty big bottle. It's especially good for something like this that you need a liquid glue for. I'm not sure I would trust a tape runner for that. Okay, it's going to continue to dry for a minute. All right, grab my bottle again, and I'm going to set that down, adhere it to the front of the card, and then I'm going to start to put the images on. I'm just going to weight it down with a stamp block there and a cup of old batteries and stuff. I went ahead and used my Uniball Signo white gel pen to add a couple little freckles to the bunny's cheek. And now I'm going to start to put the images on. One thing I realized was that I kind of didn't want him floating up in the air. Floating with the balloon, but I didn't want to have him floating too much in the air, so I end up getting a warm gray #1 pen and marker, and just kind of add a teeny little bit of shadow to give him a little bit of ground to stand on. Okay, so there's the angle I'm going to let it to glue it down at, and once I figure out where that's going to be, then I'll glue the bunny down. I'm going to use my Nuvo Smooth Precision pen, which is the teeny one, and add small dots around the bunny and add him to the bottom. And then I'm going to take the pen, the Copic marker, and glue, and sorry, not glue, and color a little shadow underneath him. I chose 3 of the hearts in the 3 sizes, and I'm going to glue 2 of them down by him, and then I'll put 1 of them up in the balloon. Okay, so I've got my shimmer pen from Nuvo, and I add that to all the pink areas. And now I'm going to take, this is the clear crystal drops, and it comes in a bigger bottle, and it's basically like glossy accents. The one thing that I've found with the Nuvo that is better to me than glossy accents is that it does not get any bubbles in it the way a glossy accents does. And the other thing that I really liked was that it dried. It dried a lot faster than the glossy accents would. I mean, I let this sit overnight anyway, but normally an area this big and this thick would probably take even a little bit longer than maybe overnight. And I know this because I ended up adding one of the hearts into it, and it was just enough to sit on top of it and glue down without sinking inside that. And you can see how thick I added it to there. So there's a little shadow I added under the bunny. And now I'm going to use my little precision glue pen to add the hearts. So I'm going to do the bigger one and the teeny tiny one just kind of right above his head. And then I'm going to take the middle size one and put it inside that, like sort of where the highlight kind of would be in the balloon. And off screen, after it dried completely, I did add some of those dream drops there, the pink ones, to the hearts. So I'm just going to set that one right in there, and that is it. It was a simple card, but I think it's really pretty, and I'm real excited about sending it to someone very special. So thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate everybody's comments and feedback, and would love it if you gave me a thumbs up, and we will see you next time. Bye!